Hello and welcome to Maggie Mumbles. My name is Maggie, and on this channel I mumble about the things that are interesting to me right now, usually having to do with witchcraft, spirituality, or personal development, or all three. So if that sounds interesting to you too, then please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel, as well as hitting the bell so that you're notified every time I put out a new video. We are doing a series right now on this channel where I am reacting to videos of myself from the past. I did something called the Enwitching Challenge, where I shared topics relating to witchcraft, but things that maybe if you're a new witch you hadn't considered yet in your practice, and also things that if you're a more, experienced witch, you might not have thought about as well. So things that are like off the beaten path a little bit. And so I wanted to put these videos on YouTube, but I was noticing that some of my beliefs that I talked about in those videos have changed. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of react to myself from the past and talk about why those beliefs have changed. And maybe that would also be an invitation to people who are watching these videos to also reflect on things that they might have believed in the past that don't really fit in with what they believe now. So this is part 4 of the 5th presentation in the Enwitching Challenge. And so the theme of these videos is healthy skepticism. So if you haven't seen part 1, 2, and 3, it might be really helpful for you to go back and check those out. In those, the discussion was surrounding, what is healthy skepticism? Why is it helpful in your witchcraft practice? We also talked about the importance of mental health and taking care of yourself and how you can take care of other people if that is possible, and how to keep yourself safe from really unhealthy mental delusions and things like that. And we also talked about conspiracy theories and figuring out where to draw your line of sanity in the sand, where conspiracy theories can be sort of fun and harmless, and where they cross into the realms of being really harmful to you and other people. And this video is kind of wrapping everything up. I give you some resources about identifying whether groups are healthy groups that are positive and reinforcing, or harmful and destructive cults, or things like that. So stick around with me for this last part in this series, and I really hope you enjoy it. I'm going to pass it off to Maggie from the past, who is reacting to videos from even further back. Sort of a little Maggieception going on here. So without further ado, here she is. Whether you're online or in person, just remember to rely on your ethics and your own sense of reality and your boundaries, because remember, your boundaries are super important. Remain as the person who is at the wheel of your path. Don't let people steer you in directions that you're not comfortable with. Remain in control. Don't let people take your hand and pull you in a direction that you don't want to go. Show up with an intention to respect those you encounter, and make sure you expect the same treatment in return. Make sure that you expect to be treated with respect as well. Set your moral compass as a way to help you navigate the world. Call people out on their bullshit when necessary. Call people out when they're acting or speaking unethically. And if you don't feel comfortable calling people out, then you just need to remember that you have to feel comfortable with that choice to not act on that. Generally, people are good. Generally, people have good intentions. I don't make these statements to scare you, but I do think it's important to talk about, because I think that it's really easy to go down this path of illusions and unreality. So again, I'm not trying to scare you. I just feel like this is not talked about very often in a lot of witchcraft settings. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on that. Okay, and if you do feel like you are in a place where you're being gaslit, or if you feel like you need to question your situation, make sure that you follow up on that and see if your concerns are founded. There is a resource that I'm going to link to. It's called Isaac Bonewitt's Cult Danger Evaluation Frame, and it's got several different questions that you can ask if you enter into a situation that might not be safe. But again, most people have good intentions. Most people are wanting to help and be guides in a good way, but you just have to be careful of the very few people who are not looking out for your best intentions. So I'll upload a worksheet and the key messages from this presentation, and thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. Bye. I was laughing because I think it's actually Bonowitz and I said Bonewitz. I don't actually know. I have it here. I thought I'd just go through it real quick. Events in the last several decades have clearly indicated just how dangerous some religious secular groups, usually called cults by those opposed to them, can be to their own members as well as to anyone else whom they influence. Brainwashing, beatings, child abuse, rapes, murders, mass suicides, military drillings and gun running, meddling in civil governments, international terrorism, and other crimes have been charged against leaders and members of many groups. In far too many cases, those accusations have been correct. None of this has been very surprising to historians of religion or to other scholars of what are usually labeled new religions, no matter how old they may be in their culture of origin. Minority groups, especially religious ones, are often accused of crimes by members of the current majority. In many ways, for example, the Mormons were the Moonies of the 19th century, at least in terms of being an unusual minority belief system that many found shocking at the time, and the members of the Unification Church, or the Moonies, could be just as respectable 100 years from now as the Latter-day Saints are today. In 1979, I constructed an evaluation tool which I now call, it's called ABCDEF. Advanced Bonowitz Cult Danger Evaluation Frame. That's so clever because it should be elementary. That's cute. Okay, I enjoy that. All right, so let's just look at what is on these. It looks like you can rank each question 1 to 10. Internal control, the amount of internal political and social power exercised by the leader over members, lack of clearly defined organizational rights for members. External control, amount of external political and social influence desired or obtained, emphasis on directing members' external political and social behaviors. Wisdom, knowledge claimed by leader, amount of infallibility declared or implied about decisions or doctrinal scriptural interpretations, number and degree of unverified and unverifiable credentials claimed. Wisdom, knowledge credited to leaders by members. Amount of trust in decisions or doctrinal scriptural interpretations made by leaders, amount of hostility by members toward internal and external critics, and toward verification efforts. Dogma, rigidity of reality concepts taught, amount of doctrinal inflexibility or fundamentalism, hostility towards relativism and situationalism. Recruiting, emphasis put on attracting new members, amount of proselytizing, requirement for all members to bring in new ones. Front groups, number of subsidiary groups using different names from that main group, especially when connections are hidden. Wealth, amount of money and or property desired or obtained by the group, emphasis on members' donations, economic lifestyle of leaders compared to ordinary members. Sexual manipulation of members by leaders of non-tantric groups. I feel like even tantric groups should not be doing sexual manipulation. Just saying. Amount of control exercised over sexuality of members in terms of sexual orientation, behavior, and or choice of partners. Sexual favoritism, advanced or preferential treatment dependent upon sexual activity with the leaders of non-tantric groups. Again, I think that, I don't know. Censorship, amount of control over members' access to outside opinions on group, its doctrine or leaders. Isolation, amount of effort to keep members from communicating with non-members, including family, friends, and lovers. Dropout control, intensity of efforts directed at preventing or returning dropouts. Violence, amount of approval when used by or for the group, its doctrines or leaders. Paranoia, amount of fear concerning real or imagined enemies, exaggeration of perceived power of opponents, prevalence of conspiracy theories. Grimness, amount of disapproval concerning jokes about the group, its doctrines, or its leaders. Is that like from the outside? Probably. Surrender of will, amount of emphasis on members not having to be responsible for personal decisions, degree of individual disempowerment created by the group, its doctrine, or its leaders. And hypocrisy, the amount of approval for actions which the group officially considers immoral, unethical when done by or for the group, its doctrines, or leaders. Willingness to violate the group's declared principles for political, psychological, social, economic, military, or other gain. So yes, I guess you rank each of those 1 to 10. Higher numerical score is more dangerous. So I think that that's a simple tool. Another tool that I am going to show you. So Stephen Hassan has written several books, including Combating Cult Mind Control. He was a person who was in the Moonies. This is the Influence Continuum, and this is from the BITE model, and I think it's super helpful for evaluating a group or a person as constructive or destructive, healthy or unhealthy. Yeah, it shows you for leaders, for people within the group, for individuals, and for the organization and the relationships within that group. From authentic self, being authentic to who you actually are, to having like a false cult identity, wearing a mask so that you fit in with the group. Unconditional love versus conditional love, in quotes. Having compassion for others versus having hate towards others, especially outside the group, being compassionate towards people who aren't in that group versus hating outsiders. Trusting conscience versus trusting doctrine. So this is more about having trust in your own ethics versus trusting in the doctrine of the group. Creativity and humor being welcomed, whereas solemnity, fear, and guilt are the kind of emotions present in an unhealthy group. Valuing free will and critical thinking versus valuing dependency and obedience. So evaluating individuals within the group and seeing which of these is more prevalent within the individuals can help you understand whether this group is destructive or constructive. Then looking at the leaders of the group, if they seem to be psychologically healthy, is constructive versus more of a narcissistic person who really needs the adoration and the attention. Healthy leaders know their limits, whereas an unhealthy leader would be more elitist or grandiose, might claim they don't have limits, that they're infallible. Healthy leaders will empower the individuals within the group, whereas an unhealthy leader will be more power hungry and will disempower members. So they'll take all the power of the members for themselves. A healthy leader is more trustworthy. An unhealthy leader is going to be secretive and deceptive, dishonest, lying. Healthy leaders take accountability. Unhealthy leaders are going to claim absolute authority. They're infallible. Like I said, they won't be held accountable for their actions. And then if you look at the organization as a whole and the relationships within the organization, a healthy organization is going to be more egalitarian, where there's equality for all, whereas an unhealthy will have structures of elitism where there's certain people who are higher than others, a hierarchy structure as well. Healthy organizations have checks and balances where different departments or different individuals will be able to, there's nobody who has absolute power over everything. There's different checks, whereas unhealthy organization will have an authority structure where there's one person who has all the power, the leader usually, and then there may be like a level of people who report to that leader who have some amount of power, and then going down the line there's less and less power. So it's hierarchy, pyramid even. Informed consent is key in healthy organizations. There's deception and manipulation in an unhealthy organization. Individuality and diversity is valued in a healthy organization, where you might notice a lot of clones, a lot of people who are identical within an unhealthy organization. So again, that's looking at the individuals. We saw creativity and humor, authenticity versus fear and guilt and false identities. A false identity being a person who is like taken on a persona of the group, and then all the people within the group seem to be clones of one another, taking on this false identity. In a constructive organization, means create the end, whereas the reverse of that is the ends justify the means. So a healthy organization, there's a goal, and everything that you're working towards will get you towards that goal, whereas in the destructive organization, the goal justifies all things, that you're working towards something, and so whatever you have to do to get there is justifiable. I think it's the ethics involved there. Constructive organization is going to encourage growth, whereas an unhealthy or destructive organization is going to preserve the power of the individual or the leader. A healthy organization is wanting everybody to be healthy and empowered. A healthy organization, you're free to leave whenever you want, and you can probably maintain the friendships of the people within the group, whereas with an unhealthy organization, if you leave, you're going to be ostracized, people are not going to talk to you anymore, you're going to be cut off from all of the relationships that you might have formed within the group, if you're allowed to leave at all. There's going to be a lot of fear instilled in you about what's going to happen when you leave in an unhealthy group. So that is the influence continuum. I think that that is really helpful. And then I did want to talk about the BITE model, but this one's really long. I don't want to go through all of it, but it stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. Behavior control is about your behavior, obviously. So if the group is trying to control what you eat, how you act, when you sleep, all of these things, that's not good. If you see anything that falls within that, that's a red flag. Information control is about controlling what information you're allowed to look at. For example, I personally believe that most MLMs, I might say all MLMs, but I don't like to make blanket statements. So let's say most MLMs, in my opinion, are commercial cults, and they have information control in that the only information that they will provide to somebody who they're recruiting comes either from the organization or from a pro MLM source. And when I say MLM, I mean multi-level marketing, not men loving men. And they will discourage people that they're trying to recruit or people who are already part of the company from looking at anything outside of those sources. And that would be information control. Then the T in the BITE model is thought control. This is like the thought stopping techniques. This is toxic positivity. This is preventing critical thinking, using thought-stopping techniques to prevent you from having any skepticism, like we've been talking about in this video. This is also where a lot of the language of a harmful group comes in. It's almost like you're speaking a different language, but everyone within the group knows what you're talking about. So this is something that was prevalent in NXIVM. So if you've seen The Vow, you'll notice that there was certain language that they used where they're using English, they're speaking in English, but they're using words in ways that don't mean the same thing that it means in regular English. It's like a whole new language within the harmful group. And then emotional control is the E in BITE model. And so this is controlling the emotions. And again, this is the toxic positivity stuff. There's some overlap there with the thought control. This is also where there's a lot of fear of leaving is instilled, creating fear that isn't real, creating situations that make you fearful and it's not a real fear. Using love bombing to get people into the group. So being so complimentary of people, being welcoming and excited. And then maybe that switches as soon as you're in, where you become ridiculed and beaten down physically and emotionally. The BITE model is another useful tool for evaluating harmful groups and leaders. Thank you so much for watching with me. These are things that I'm really interested in. So if you were to let me know in the comments if you want me to talk more about various conspiracy theories that might overlap with witchcraft and spirituality, different harmful groups, MLMs, and everything overlapping with witchcraft and spirituality, because that's like the base. But anyway, if any of this is interesting to you and you want more videos about these kinds of things, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Or if you don't, you can let me know that too. Don't forget to like the video if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell, all those things. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate it very much if you do so. I am gonna leave you now because this is very long, as I mentioned, and so I think it's time to say goodbye. But I will see you very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching.